Like I said, the only financial thing he ever said is just like, she just likes to spend money, like a lot of it. So that was just kind of the vibe that I got from that, and that it was a lifestyle that she liked to live, like very, like materialistic kind of lifestyle.
Wanted to
Like
project a certain image.
Yes, all the time. And he said that was why they got that house too. It's like she wants everybody to think that we live a certain way and that we can like sustain all this stuff. And he's like, and we can't. And I told him, I said, when you're in those situations, why don't you, I'm like, do you like voice your concern about this? And he told me, he's like, when I try to talk to her, he's like, she's really bossy and she usually shuts me out. And he's like, when she does that, he's like, I just let it go. And I was just like, all right. I mean, I don't try to like interfere with how those two interact. But I did ask about it because I'm just curious, because I would never put myself in a situation where someone was like, you know what, we're going to live in this house that costs like double what we can afford, and that's how it's going to be, because I want everybody to think we're fancy. Because I wouldn't do that. I mean, to me, like, I wouldn't put up with somebody doing that to me. And I'm not saying that that's what she was doing. I mean, for all I know, he could have been completely lying about this. He could be the one spending all the money.
Sure.
You know?
This is just what he told you.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's as far as I can interpret it. So I can't be like, well, oh, she needs to do this and she needs to do that. But he voiced his concern where it's just like, financially, I'm in a very bad spot.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. During the August 16th interview with Nicole Kessinger, the now infamous mistress of Chris Watts, the investigator wanted to know what Watts had told her, what he'd told Kessinger about his wife, what had he complained about, what was wrong with their marriage according to him. Kessinger said it was a very materialistic kind of lifestyle. Do you think it was? And where Watts apparently said to his mistress, I'm concerned I'm in a very bad spot. Was he right? Was he in a very bad spot financially? Bear in mind, they were about to have a third child. From the outside looking in, was she right?
And all this stuff. And he's like, and we can't. And I told him, I said, when you're in those situations, why don't you, I'm like, do you like voice your concern about this? And he told me, he's like, when I try to talk to her, he's like, she's really bossy and she usually shuts me out. And he's like, when she does that, he's like, I just let it go. And I was just like, all right. I mean, I don't try to like interfere with how those two interact. But I did ask about it because I'm just curious, because I would never put myself in a situation where someone was like, you know what, we're going to live in this house that costs like double what we can afford, and that's how it's going to be, because I want everybody to think we're fancy. Because I wouldn't do that. I mean, to me, like, I wouldn't put up with somebody doing that to me. And I'm not saying that that's what she was doing. I mean, for all I know, he could have been completely lying about this. He could be the one spending all the money.
Sure.
You know?
This is just what he told you.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's as far as I can interpret it. So I can't be like, well, oh, she needs to do this and she needs to do that. But he voiced his concern where it's just like, financially, I'm in a very bad spot that I don't need to be in, but I'm stuck in. And that was kind of where he was at. So, but I mean, he was never like mean when he talked about her. He was never hostile, like nothing like that. He just, I mean, very calmly, like, this is the situation. And I think the only reason that he even provided me with that information is because I asked.
Okay. You said something about her being controlling or
Bossy.
That's
what he said. Bossy.
In like all aspects of their life, or what? Do you know exactly what he meant by that? How that affected him?
I think he was just saying when he voices his opinion, it's not heard. Is the gist of that, which I thought, from what it sounded like from their separation, from them trying to separate, that was a big deal for him, where he was saying that the reason that they don't really get along anymore is because he feels like he's not heard. He says that he comes home from work and he tries to talk to her and she'll just be like, 1 minute, I'm on the phone. Or she'll like scroll through social media and she like doesn't acknowledge him. And he said that he'd addressed it with her a few times and they're calm. He said they don't really like fight. Like they don't scream and yell. And he said he'd addressed it with her a few times, and he said it just fell on deaf ears. He's like, she just seems like she's not interested anymore. And I think it made him sad because, I mean, he was like all about his kids, and he seemed like he was trying to be all about her, but it just wasn't reciprocated. And I think at that point he was just like, I don't.
So I think we can take it with a pinch of salt when she says that he said that Shanann, I'm talking about besides the finances, that Shanann wasn't really interested in him anymore. We know that she was fighting for a marriage until the very end. Obviously, it was in Watts's interest to make it seem like she wasn't very interested or attentive. I think she was. I don't think she would have gotten pregnant otherwise. And obviously, he had become less attentive. The question is, what extent had he become less attentive prior to Kessinger coming along? Just in terms of being possibly turned off by the situation, the finances, the social media, all that kind of thing. It's just something to consider. I think one does have the sense that there may have been some unhappiness, but overall, Chris Watts was actually quite happy because Shanann was quite shocked by suddenly when she saw him again, he was a totally different person. So he was obviously very much seemed to be very committed, and then suddenly something had changed with him. The question is, had something suddenly changed? And I think the answer is something did change, but I think over time one could argue that the situation they were in longer term wasn't necessarily one that he had signed up for. And he was possibly not even consciously looking for an off-ramp, and when one was presented to him, he took it, right? We have seen a lot of focus on what Nicole Kessinger said that wasn't true, or what she did that wasn't right. And I think there's a perception that if Nicole Kessinger simply didn't exist, Chris and Shanann would have lived happily ever after. They were living happily ever after, and they would have just continued to live happily after that. This is why Kessinger is to blame. She spoiled the fairy tale. Do you think that's realistic, though? Do you think that is the true state of things? I think the harder pill to swallow is the possibility that the Watts fairy tale wasn't even true to begin with, and it wasn't sustainable either. Whether Kessinger was in the picture or not, things were going to have to change. They were facing a second bankruptcy, they were losing the house, and putting their kids into a second school was going to have to happen as well. The third pregnancy, coming when it did, was the perfect storm to put the already deleterious financial situation into stark perspective. And so you didn't only have the perfect storm of the pregnancy, but you have also had the perfect storm of the affair, those two together, and then the perfect storm of the finances. If many feel that Kessinger was the real issue and the only issue, the thorn undermining the marriage, what did Watts think or say was the problem? Do you think there was any truth to this notion that the way they were living beyond their means, and it was sort of Shanann deciding what they were going to do and Watts just going along with it in this showy, ostentatious way? It wasn't something that Watts had signed up for, but it was also his fault for not making sure that it didn't happen. But just think about what was happening. He hadn't signed up for this, and they were in this big house, and the Thrive thing was essentially doing the whole showy thing every day, claiming they were wealthy, healthy, and happy. They were not only living beyond their means, they were pretending in a very clear, consistent, repetitive way. I mean, it's the whole theme of the Thrive thing. Let me show you how happy and healthy and wealthy we are. And that is perhaps not so much fun for an introvert. And it's definitely not a lot of fun when you're pretending to be wealthy when you're not. When you're pretending on social media that you have everything you want, meanwhile you're struggling to pay the bills, you're struggling to keep your house. Could that have had something to do with Watts becoming unhappy in his marriage, even before Kessinger came on the scene?
They just kind of like fell apart.
Okay.
Just kind of drifted apart.
Was that your words or his?
What?
Fell apart.
Those are mine.
Okay.
Those are mine. He just said that they didn't communicate very well. And it wasn't in a aggressive way communicate. It was just the fact that they didn't communicate at all.
They
didn't talk.
Yeah, they had children, and was there ever mention that he was trying to resolve or save his marriage for the children's sake? A lot of people talk about that. Did he talk about that?
I mean, he told me that he believed that the only reason that those two had still been doing it as long as they've been doing it, he told me that her and him have had communication issues for about 6 years, where she just seems really detached and uninterested in trying to build something with him. And he said, and I said, 6 years is a really long time for you guys to not fix that, considering they were married for 8? I mean, that's the majority of their marriage. And he said, sometimes I think we just do it for the kids or something like that. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen these conversations, so I don't know verbatim, but it was pretty much just
get you to remember some things.
Yeah, but he said it wasn't just him though. He was I think she does that too. Okay. You know? I mean, and it was this equal part where they are just kind of going through the motions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when he told me that she was cool with, the 50% everything and just, breaking it off and being really civil about it, it kind of made sense to me, because I was the way he made this sound, it wasn't, oh, she's this horrible person, or, oh, I'm this horrible person. It was, her and I have drifted so far apart that it's kind of a mutual agreement that this is not going to work.
So in those 6 years, though, they had 2 children.
Yep.
And you said earlier you did not know she was pregnant until reading the newspaper.
Yep.
So that never came up in any conversation. There was no indications that was going on.
None.
He never hinted to anything like
Nothing.
that. As far as you knew, he was just leaving her. He had 2 children, and that was the final take on that.
Yes.
Okay.
I know why he lied to me. He lied to me because if I'd have known that he had a child on the way, I'd have never wasted my time with him in the first place. None of this would have ever even occurred if he would have just told me the truth.
So do you think if he found out that you, if, let's say this week you guys were to go look at some apartments, and this is hypothetical, but you've never found out that his wife was pregnant, would that have changed anything? Like you just said, if I knew his wife was pregnant, I wouldn't be in this picture. So if his wife was not pregnant, and forgive me, but if he takes her out of the picture, you're never going to know that she was pregnant, right?
What do you mean takes her out of the picture?
If he murdered her, she's out of the picture. You're never going to know if she was pregnant. If he can get away with, you're not going to, I got divorced from my wife. You say, do you understand what I'm saying here? If she's gone,
but this,
don't lead.
Hypothetically.
Please.
Yeah.
Don't
Hypothetically.
lead on.
If she,
Okay.
You understand where I'm going. If
Right,
you
but
didn't know.
You're leading into questions that.
So I'm not going to take it further than that, but in the next episode, we are going to look at this moment that takes place where Dwayne actually cuts the investigator off, asking him not to lead. And we want to look at the idea that is being proposed by Kobach and why also Dwayne doesn't want to do that. And we have heard about this in the past. We've heard the audio, but now we're going to put them together. We're going to see Kessinger's father put up his hand and kind of get involved. It's kind of the most involved he gets in this conversation, and we're going to examine it on video for the first time. So obviously, if you want to catch that episode and you're not a subscriber to this channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, like, share, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.